You may remember from the very first City Girl Savings podcast episode that I was once a major overspender. There wasn't anything I wouldn't spend my money on. And in today's episode, I'm diving deeper into the strategies and thought processes I use to curb my desire to spend once and for all. Welcome to the City Girl Savings Podcast. I'm Raya Reeves, founder and finance coach of City Girl Savings. I turned my life around with budgeting many years ago, and now I'm on a mission to help others do the same. I fully believe that you can enjoy your life on a budget, and this weekly show will focus on the intersection of money and the city girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. I am often asked how I can control my spending. A lot of people struggle with this, and I get it. Trust me, I was there. And I think when you can master controlling your desire to spend, you can really see forward progress with your finances. Now, there were two specific points in time where I curbed my desires to spend. The first was when I was living in LA, basically facing eviction. And the second was when I moved back to Austin and had a lot more income to leverage. There's a very big difference in these two specific points in time. One of them, I was basically forced to curb my desires to spend. And the other, I made the conscious effort to curb it. So let's start with the point in time where I was forced to curb my desire to overspend. It was when I was living in Los Angeles and basically faced eviction. You may remember I walked up to my apartment door one evening and saw a pay in 3 days or get out notice. I didn't get paid for 5 days. Fortunately, I was able to come up with the money and pay my rent on time, if you can call it that. Even though I was already late, I was able to avoid eviction. And I was forced to control my spending at that point. I wanted to live in Los Angeles. There was no going back. There was no going home. So if I wanted to stay out there, I had no choice but to get my spending under control. Now, there's a different level of drive when you're forced into something. You basically have no choice. Get it done or face the consequences. And my budget basically showed me that I really couldn't afford to spend. All of my money went to living expenses and debt. And if I were to spend money on things I didn't need, it would be at the expense of my priorities. And that wasn't happening. So nothing like being forced to do something. However, you're not making that decision by yourself. There are outside circumstances forcing you to do it. And that was the case for me. Sure, I got it done. I definitely stopped overspending, but I had no choice. Now, the second specific scenario is where I really want to focus on. This was the scenario where I had already moved back to Austin and had a lot more income to leverage. This could have been a make or break scenario. Because I didn't have as many expenses after living in LA, I had more income. And the more income I had, the more that I technically could spend and still make sure my priorities were covered. This is where I had to make the actual conscious decision not to overspend. And it's important to know this. I wasn't making more money at this time, but I did have less expenses, which allowed me to leverage more money. Again, going back to a conscious decision to curb my desire to spend. When you have more money to work with, it's easier to spend at your disposal because you have the extras to go around. You can make sure your priorities are covered, make sure your debts are paid, save a little, and whatever's left over, free reign. This is not how you get ahead. You have to be able to use that leftover amount to get you ahead. No free reign here, okay? Now, I will say this. The habits that I had when I was forced to curb my desire to spend while living in LA definitely helped. So me being in a situation where I was forced to get my spending under control, even though it was no choice of my own, it really did help me when it came down to making that decision on my own. I was already on the straight and narrow with my spending and budgeting for almost a year and a half before I moved to Austin. And I had built the routine of watching my money on a consistent basis and not spending on non necessities. Again, I was forced to, but I did it before. I could do it again. And this shows the power of consistency in building habits. Eventually, it becomes second nature. One of the things I used to help control my desire to spend was avoiding places that triggered me to spend. One of the ways that my mom and I would spend quality time together was by going to department stores. We would go to malls around Austin. We would go to the outlet mall, Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls. We loved going to these stores. Now, my mom was good with her money. She could go into these stores and not spend a dime. Me, on the other hand, because I had the money, I could go into these stores and spend a little something. So every time we went out, lo and behold, I'd find something I wanted to buy. And I realized that I don't want to stop having the quality time with my mom, so I got to get it together. I started going with limits to spend. Making sure that I had room in my budget for things I enjoyed was definitely a key factor here. And when I would go to these stores, malls, whatever you want to call them, I would go with a limit in mind. $50, $25, $10, didn't matter. I had my limit. Then I started leaving my wallet at home. If I found that I wouldn't stick to my limits, I just made it impossible for me to even spend money. And I would tell myself that I could always come back and get it. 9 times out of 10, I never went back. So it just goes to show that I never really wanted the items anyways. This taught me a very important lesson about myself. I can always spend money on something. It is just in my nature, even to this day. If I'm in a position where I can spend money, 9 times out of 10, I will if I don't have my boundaries in place. I have to put boundaries in place to make sure I don't spend unnecessarily. It's just too easy for me to do. So now I avoid the mall unless I have something specific I need to buy. I typically don't go to Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, outlet malls. It just doesn't happen. Maybe once or twice a year when I know I need to stock up on a few things, that's when I'll go. So avoiding those places that trigger me to spend is so critical in helping me actually curb that desire to spend. Are you tired of wondering which moves to make next with your money? Do you need some guidance on whether to pay off debt, save, or focus on something else? Get my free Money Moves packet today and start making impactful money moves instantly. Go to citygirlsavings.com/moves to download your Money Moves packet now. Now, I'm happy to say that eventually my mom and I found other ways to spend our time. And like I said, I only go to those types of stores if I need something or am ready to buy something. And that's once or twice a year. Another thing I did to curb my desire to spend was I got clear on what really mattered to me. As I mentioned before, during my college years, the things that mattered most were material. Outfits, clothes, shoes, accessories, going out to eat. Those were the things that mattered most to me in college. And thankfully, I grew out of that. To be honest, after my dad died, I realized that stability, experiences, memories, and quality time mean the most to me. It's crazy how your perspective changes after going through something so life-altering like death. The little things, the petty things, they're just so irrelevant. And I even took the love language quiz and found out that my love language is quality time. So to me, spending time is more important than spending money. But I had to learn this about myself. I had to put myself in a position to recognize these things and be open to them. I will also say that for me, there is no security like financial security. I grew up a very independent person. As you know, I ditched Austin, left everyone behind, and moved to LA on my own. So I have no problem being by myself. But I have found that I don't like asking for help. Now, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but it does mean that I am more focused on having my own security, so I never have to ask anyone for anything. Again, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but to me, There's no security like financial security. And I found that the weight that was essentially lifted off my shoulders by having money in the bank was worth so much more than having more things. The more things I accumulated when I was younger gave me joy, but the more my bank account grows now that I'm older is what really gives me joy. There's so much power in knowing that you have money in the bank and it gives you options. And options is what allows you to really enjoy life. So, recognizing that I need financial security definitely helped me overcome my desires to spend money on things that really didn't bring security. I also had a priority shift the older I got. Traveling the world became my priority, and I could care less about what I wore. Now, to this day, I save for travel. I have a sinking fund that is literally called travel. So I save regularly for trips, even if none are planned. And I know about myself that experiencing new and different places truly brings me joy. I am the most present, the most mindful when I am in a new location, literally just looking all around at my surroundings. It truly is something that matters most to me and I won't give it up. But guess what? I don't have to give it up because I gave up clothes, shoes, the things that really didn't mean anything to me. I've made room for the things that do. Another way I curbed my desire to spend was by setting goals and actually achieving those goals. So, working towards my goals made it easier for me not to spend money on things that didn't help me actually reach those goals. And I personally write down my goals every day, and I also have them written on a dry erase board in my office so they're always visible. Understanding what I'm working towards, seeing it on a regular basis, and really thinking about those things consistently helps make sure that I do things that help me reach those goals. So, any action that takes me away from that goal, I'm not up for it. And I found that the more goals I would hit over time, the more I wanted to leverage my money the best way possible. There really is something so powerful about setting a goal, working hard to reach that goal, and actually achieving that goal. It's almost like you want to keep going because you keep hitting new levels, new personal bests, and there's always more that can be accomplished. So when I started setting goals and working towards those goals, it really made it easy to not spend money on things that really had no place in my life. And the final thing I did to curb my desire to spend was actually giving myself a little room to spend. Now, I know this is a little counterintuitive, but just hear me out. I started giving myself some room to enjoy life with in my budget. So, after all of my priorities were accounted for, my bills, my expenses, my variable spending, and then after my savings was accounted for, I would make sure to factor in fun spending into my budget. I have done this regularly for years. This is what I have my clients do, and it makes all the difference. Here's the thing. When you are so focused on reaching your goals, which trust me, I get it, that you avoid indulging yourself at all over a long period of time, you become deprived. And that deprivation leads to splurging. I have been there. Trust me, I know most people who have literally went cold turkey with their spending have found that it leads to splurging. So give yourself a little to enjoy life with in your budget. Now, for me, not constantly overspending, but really working within my limits helps me make sure that I still get to enjoy myself, but it's not at the expense of my priorities and goals. And there is power in knowing that you can afford to spend money on fun and still have everything else taken care of. It really is the key for consistency and sustainability with your budget. And like I said, my clients have found the exact same thing. Deprivation always leads to impulse spending. So avoid that. Avoid putting yourself in that position by making sure you give yourself a little to enjoy life with. This is something I do and will always continue to do. Now, I hope this episode inspires you to get clear on what matters most and say no to the things that don't matter or don't help you get to what matters most. Understand yourself. Know the things that mean something to you and the things that don't. Set your goals, work towards those goals, and make sure that you are enjoying life in moderation. You work hard for this, and you deserve to indulge every now and then. But again, not at the expense of your goals. Thank you so much for tuning in to City Girl Savings today. I hope you feel empowered and inspired to master your money as you make your way to your dream life. Make sure you subscribe so you're the first to know when a new episode comes out. I truly value your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a review and let me know how this podcast has impacted you. Can't wait to chat soon and make it a great day.